All right, Steve Wood, recovered alcoholic. Welcome to Common Solution Workshop. Tonight is a step 10 workshop. And you know me, I start with a story, and I heard this story years ago. People attach their name to this and stuff. It's really an anonymous writer, but I really want you to listen closely what it says. It's more like a poem. There's a man planted a rose and watered it every day faithfully. Examine it closely. When it bloomed, he saw there were thorns and thought, how can anything so beautiful come from a plant burdened by so many sharp thorns? Distraught by this thought, he neglected to water the rose, and it wilted away until it was no longer beautiful. So it is with people. Within every person there is a rose, a spirit planted in us at birth. It grows amongst the thorns of our faults and imperfections. Many look at them and only see their thorns and their defects. They believe nothing good can possibly come from them. So they neglect to water their spirit within, and eventually it wilters away, and they never realize their full potential. Perhaps the truest, most innocent gift a person can possess is the ability to look beyond their thorns and know they are a rose. Even greater is the ability to continue to always conquer their thorns. It is only then that we always blossom. Our duty in this world is to help others by showing them they are a rose and not just thorns. By doing so, we achieve love, all by learning to blossom our own garden. Tonight, we're going to look and talk about how we can continue to bloom. So last week, we covered step 9, but I did not cover the step 9 promises, and that wasn't by accident. That was on purpose, because they flow right into step 10, and I like the fact that there's 9 step and 10 step promises in the same workshop. It really makes it pretty tight. I want to start off by talking about some of the things we hear at meetings. So we have the serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to do the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And many think of the prayer as only about not changing the fact we're alcoholic, but that's just the first part. The second part, the courage to change things we can, that screams out amends. That screams out 4 through 9, because it takes courage to do those, especially make amends. It also tells us there are things we can change. And that's the beauty of the program. We can change. There are things we can change. And at meetings, when we hear nothing at meetings, people read how it works. And they read whenever possible, not wherever possible. We talked about that last week. And then the promises are read, and someone will go, these are the AA promises. There's no such thing as AA promises. The only promises are pertaining to certain steps, 3, 5, and 8, 9, just scattered ones throughout the book. But the ones that we're at meetings are 9 step promises. And I often wonder, do the people in the rooms, and it's not their fault, actually understand the context of what's being read, how deeply it goes. The step 9 promises describe our interest into spiritual awakening. It is showing us that we are no longer a prisoner of self, that we don't have to hide anymore, and we can hold our heads up high. That's what they're about. And it is like kind of like the final piece to the vigorous action. It's like that puzzle piece you're putting together and it's complete. Right? And we're getting rid of the things that are blocking us, meaning the end of the malady. The third step says we are reborn. Third step promises. That's what they're describing here, being reborn. Fifth step promises say we may have certain spiritual beliefs, but now we can have spiritual experience. That's what they're describing here. There's no easier, softer ways to receive these promises. They're not ones, I have all these and they never made an amends. Not possible. The 9-step promises are not false advertising. So let's look at them. Let's look at them. I believe that's 83. I don't have it written down, but 9-step promises. So the 9-step promises begin with a condition. And we've heard this read a million times at meetings. If we are painstaking, stop right there for a second. The one word we hear all through this is thorough. Painstaking means thorough, done with great detail and effort. No stone unturned. So we heard the condition before. Rarely we see a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. We beg you to be fearless and thorough from the very start, right? We went back to our lives, went back through our lives. Nothing counted but thoroughness and honesty. So now they're saying this: if we are painstaking, if we have been painstaking, I'm going to say about this phase of our development, what phase? And that's the development of the God consciousness, the awareness of God within union with God, the vital sixth sense from 4 through 7. We will be amazed when we're halfway through the amends. So here are the promises of being halfway through the amends, walking in the awakened state. Look at these. We're going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. What stands out is not freedom and happiness, it's the word new, meaning we get to experience freedom, but we get to have that we never experienced before. We get to have a happiness we never experienced before. Why? Because the only freedom we thought was out here. If we left prison, we thought was walking through the gates, right? If we had happiness, we went and bought ourselves a TV set or a car. They're saying this new happiness is where? Within us. That's why we never experienced before. And that's why it's called an awakening. We will not regret the past, nor wish to shut the door on it. So we gain the ability to not only not regret the past, but also closing the door. Meaning so many people want to, I'm closing the door on my past. That was one thing we prayed for. Can we close the door on our past? You know, step 9 can remove guilt. And why do we want the door open? That's the question. It's for when we sponsor. We want no shame when we're sharing our experience with another alcoholic or speaking up in a meeting. Because my past is my present for others, and it creates a trust that can't be broken. Look what it says next. We will comprehend the word serenity, and we will know peace. So now we get some spiritual words. Comprehend means to understand. That's an important word. How do you know something? Only from experience it. Anything else is a theory. And when you finally understand and know serenity, you realize you never had it. You realize you never had peace for the same reasons. You were looking for it outside yourself. So when consciousness is blocked, your perception of life is flawed, hazy. And that causes your thinking to be distorted by irrational and distorted thoughts. And we are one with consciousness. You perceive things truthfully and rationally, sanely. And if I cannot have that oneness, it can be it can be many things that stand in the way of that oneness with God. Maybe it's the resentment I won't let go of. Maybe it's something that you're not being honest about. Maybe it's a fear that you will not face, an amends you refuse to make. Maybe it's a relationship you won't let go of. Meaning if I'm stuck, I'm always experiencing, if I'm not stuck on any of that stuff, I will always experience oneness and knowing peace and serenity. Look what it says next. No matter how far down the scale we have gone, no matter how far the stairs we have fallen, we'll see how our experience can benefit others. No matter how much you screwed up in your life, no matter how much you look at yourself, your experience is going to benefit others. That's the beauty of this. I mean, let's be real in here. Some of us have done some bad things and hurt lots of people. And thanks to our newfound clarity from overcoming the malady, we see that our past can benefit others. That feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. You know, we tried so many numerous ways to escape and beat, to feel useful, so to speak. We tried so many ways to beat self-pity. What did we do? We went to church, we went to therapy, we went to counseling, whatever we went to. We got hooked on money, hooked on drugs, hooked on alcohol. We tried many things to get, to feel better. And we feel useful by making amends. The fears, disappear, so to speak. And I have a message, self-pity disappeared because we no longer resent ourselves. We're no longer the victim. That's what that means. We will lose interest in selfish things. And look at this, gain interest in our fellows. Here's the shift stuff now. Selfishness is tending most mental needs with low or no thought of others. Now there's the shift, the flip-flop. It's being selfless, which is tending mostly to the thoughts and needs of others with little or no interest at all. I had a guy say the other day, I don't do that. And I said, yeah, you do. You're always helping others. It takes us a while to see it. It's unconscious, it happens. But we discover what happens. We discover we discover what we truly are. And that's an altruistic being. That is our natural state to be in, altruistic, unselfish. Mistrust instincts took us away from that. Look at the next one. Self-seeking will slip away. So self-seeking is, I'm going to go, I'm going to take my selfishness and put action behind it. I'm going to take my resentment and harm someone. That's self-seeking. Since we're selfish, we're no longer selfish, we're no longer taking our selfish thoughts into actions. So self-seeking will slip away. Harming others slips away. That's why we don't write a lot of harms on our 10-step, because we usually nip it in the bud. But we say stupid things once in a while with people. Trust me. So happens. Our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. Look at the key word there. Outlook, not in-look. Outlook changes. We change our in-look, changes our outlook. Our attitude and outlook changes. So our outlook changed. Our whole life, we looked out here for solutions, for money, friends, sex, whatever it is, right? And with the steps, nothing out, has changed. Our attitude changed and our outlook changed. And we bring it from within to out, instead of trying to pull things, I heard one guy say one time, everything that we wanted fulfillment from, we try to pull inside ourselves. That's why we loved alcohol, because we could do that. So, the whole look within, bringing it out, it changes the way we look at life. And when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Fear of people and economic insecurity will what? Leave us. Leave us. By making amends with people and especially making financial amends, we no longer fear those things. Awareness of material security is a big thing as well. That's the pocketbook. We will, here's my favorite one. We will intuitively, remember, this is an inward journey, intuitively know how to handle situations. We use the Balfour. So intuitively is the ability to use our spiritual senses, like our sixth sense, to understand and know something without direct evidence. Like consciousness is where I can see right or wrong. Intuitively just brings me to the right. And it is it's an inner resource that brings those infinite possibilities. And we understand and connect, with something way deeper than you could imagine. Way deeper you can imagine. Intuition is our internal communication system, an inner voice that we call in any moment. Meaning you are no longer relying on self-knowledge and instincts. The only time you don't feel that stuff is when you're not connected to it and you're away from it. So intuition means precisely its sound, intuition. It's like an inner tutor, so to speak, a learning mechanism. That's why I'm doing 10 every day, that takes you to places you never dreamed of. And for it to blossom, we must nurture it. We must let go of anything that blocks blocks us up. Step 9 opens that more, 10 opens that more, 11 opens that more, and 12 opens that more, all together at the same time. And, and that's so interesting because some guy asked me the other day, well, do I have to wait and do step 10? Wait to get through step 10 when I'm done with 9? I said, no, you're doing 9 at the same time as 10. Both give you more spiritual awareness. 11 gives you more spiritual, and 12 does. So you're bombarding yourself with this stuff. As far as, intuition though, the first time I heard that promise, I wanted them, and I in my heart, and if I did the work I could, I thought I could have the other promises, but with, intuitively know how situations used to baffle us, I didn't think that was possible. Sound pie in the sky. And my typical attitude was, yeah, people can get that, but not me. It's not going to happen. I was always baffled by ordinary situations that other people seemed born with the inability to handle. But I wanted that. But I didn't think I was born with it, so to speak. I totally gave up ever thinking I would have that ability. I had no idea that God could and would if you were saw it. Big change, huge. When it happened that way, I looked at everything change. I was in awe, absolutely awe. Here's what I mean. We'll suddenly realize that God is doing for us what we can never do for ourselves. This brings me back to the third step, the care of God, the caretaker. A caretaker, remember, I'm turning my making a decision to turn my thoughts, that's my will, or my thoughts and my life, my actions, turn my thoughts and my actions over to the care of God. God, take my thoughts and care for them. God, take my actions and help me with them. And that's the caretakers needed when we're incompetent and someone needs someone to do something they can do for ourselves. Now, any caretaker is lovable, trustful, and amazing person to have by your side. Imagine if that becomes God. And halfway through means, halfway through, this is happening. Let's see how far we've come. So I want you to go to page 52. Hold this page, we're come right back to it. I'm going to read the bedevilments on page 52 and contrast them with some of the promises we just read. And let's just see how far we've come. Because we read these when I said failure, failure, failure. In 52, so bedevilment says we were having trouble with personal relationships. Step 9 promises says we will lose interest in self-esteem and gain interest in our fellows. No longer a failure. Bedevilment says we couldn't control our emotional nature. Step 9 says we will comprehend the word serenity and we'll know peace. No longer a failure. Bedevilments, we were prey to misery and depression. Step 9 says our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. No longer a failure. Bedevilment says we couldn't make a living. Step 9 says fear of people and economic insecurity will leave us. No longer a failure. Bedevilment says we had a feeling of uselessness. Step 9 promises that feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. No longer failure. Bedevilment says we're full of fear. Step 9 promises that we will truly know how to handle situations we used to baffle us. No longer failing. Bedevilment said we were unhappy. Step 9 just said we are going to know a new freedom and new happiness. No longer failing. Bedevilment says we couldn't seem to be of real help to other people. Step 9, no matter how far on the scale we have gone, we'll see how our experience can benefit others. That's our job. We've always had that. Back to the page we're on. Are these extravagant promises? What does extravagant mean? Like an antique is, my grandma used to always call them extravagant. There's an antique store called Extravagance we used to go to, but it means something beyond normal. I always thought, these promises were beyond normal, over the top, but it says something beyond normal. It's beyond 5 senses, right? Are these extravagant promises? We think not. They're being fulfilled among us, sometimes quickly, spiritual experience, sometimes slowly, spiritual awakening. And they'll always materialize. Now, look at this promise. They will always materialize. They will always become reality with one condition: if we work for them. If we work for them. Work refers to action, 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 and more action. What these promises are telling all of us is we are awake, and the fourth dimension of existence is your reality. Page 84, it says this thought brings us to step 10. I'm going to put up, oh, whoa, a second. Hold on 1 second. I'm going to put the slide. Dun, 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 dun. Oh man, it just booted me off. Hold on, let me do it again. I'll get it right sometime. There we go. Step 10, continued to take personal inventory and was wrong, properly admit it. Properly admit it. Continue is a very spiritual word. It means to keep doing something without stopping, to do something repeatedly. My personal favorite definition is to keep doing a specific course of action. That's a spiritual definition I look at. There are 2 steps mentioned above in the written, what we're looking at here. The first one is step 4, personal inventory. And when wrong, probably admit it. You could, some people point out, maybe, no, that could be 5 or 9. I'd say it's 9, but that's just me. So that's pretty, step 10 is very short and precise. We're gonna get really into this whole paragraph's gonna break this down. So let's get into this. This thought brings us to 10, which suggest, you know, another word for suggest is advise. We continue to take personal inventory. 4, continue to set right any new mistakes as we go along. Set right new mistakes means making amends, right? Any new mistakes. There are 3 words. There are 3 words very different to get past. Hold on 1 second. I'm sorry. There are 3 words very difficult to get past. My kids are running out of my room office. The first one, people can't, I mean, there's words you can't get past in here. And the first one is, how do we get past the word continue? I said before, continue means to keep doing a specific course of action, 4 through 9. We just did that. But the other 2 words are hard to get past is personal inventory. And the reason I bring this up, because people will tell you that they want to tell you that the inventory of step 10 is different from 4. The only difference in 4 is we're looking way back at our past. And step 10, we continue to look back at our past, but with the stuff that just happened, maybe minutes ago. That doesn't mean the inventory style is different. If it can take a blind person like myself to have a spirit, be spiritually awoke, and, you know, imagine what they can do for a spiritually awoke person inventory. And you understand it now. And we're doing it on a daily basis to deal with life's problems. Think about that. Why would I want it to make it different? And I need to say, just put this out there. This is just my experience with step 10. If you do it another way, I'm not knocking on it or trying to change it. Just want you to be open-minded. I've heard people say one's moral and one's personal. Every time he mentions inventory in this book, most of the time it's personal. It's a bunch of times he mentions it. The only time we see moral inventory where it's written as a step, the other one is in the forward. Every time it's personal. Continue to take personal inventory, right? And once he describes the step, you know, I mean, so let me just say it this way. When he says continue to take personal inventory, he means it. He continued to use the same definite example on 65. And that means definite is something that's absolutely true, certain, and precise. But it means something bigger. Guaranteed is a guaranteed that's not going to change. This is the definite map. It's not a map that's not going to change. And it says, you know, definite example. What's an example? It's something used as a model. If he wanted to do it differently, he would say it here. I do inventory the same way the past 22 years. This is my experience. We vigorously, that means energetically, aggressively, continue this way of living as we clean up the past. See, there's that flip, I'm not doing step 9 and waiting to do 10 later. I'm doing them both. You should be on the day you do inventory with your fifth step, your sponsor, and do 6 and 7. You should make amends to the first person you see. Now you know, do step 10. That's how quickly it happens. You're doing both at the same time. That's the way this works. You can't, wait off on 10 and then wonder why the promises aren't there. And that's why I do the promises the same night, because they intertwine with each other. We'll see. But look at this promise. Here's the first step 10 promise. We have entered the world of the spirit. Many want to enter Sandy Beach used to say, many want to enter the world of the spirit without doing the, fourth step. Anyone can enter the world of the spirit. We call it also the fellowship of the spirit. But there's a condition: we must leave our stuff at the door. We must leave our world at the door to enter it. That's why we do 4 through 9. So many try to understand it before they enter it. They don't understand it because they have not entered the world of the spirit yet, but it's not something you can sneak in the back door. You cannot enter the world of the spirit until also you realize you are awake to the fact that you are a spirit. When you're awake to the fact that you are a spirit, that happens when you experience God within, when you feel it, and you have faith, and you do not doubt no more. It just said this step 9 promises that God is doing for us, we can't do for ourselves, right? As a result of 4 through 9. Our next function, love that word function. Our next function is growing understanding and effectiveness. Understanding is we read earlier, it means to know and comprehend the nature or meaning of something. And by understanding God, I understand who I am. I know who I am. And effectiveness is a level to which something is successfully, and it produces a desired result. It's something that produces a desired result. Success is what it means. That success is the result of step 10. And people call step 10 a maintenance step. Drives me crazy because yes, we maintain it, but I could have a car that looks great from the outside and runs like shit. I could have an old 67 fastback Mustang I had in high school, and that thing was candy apple red. It looked good, but it sounded like a bus. It was a piece of junk. It totally resembled the way I was. So maintenance is something we don't strive for. I want to maintain, but more, I want to grow. And spiritual growth is a process in personal spiritual development and development of higher consciousness by continuing doing the same principles that brought us to higher consciousness. It doesn't make sense to do something different. It would be insane. This is not an overnight matter. It should continue for a lifetime. What does a lifetime look like? I would say it's the duration of time being alive in the physical body. Meaning step 4 to 9 are not steps we do once. We do it in repetition every day when things come up. We'll get more into that. So, people look at step 10 as just inventory. It's 4 through 9. Continue, it says continue to watch for self-dishonesty, resentment, and fear. There's that word again, continue. So 4 things we're now aware of: selfishness, 4th column; dishonesty, 4th column. We inventory resentments and fear, and the instincts tell us. So wouldn't it make sense? We're aware of that, we can work on it. Remember what I said, what you're aware of in life, you can work on, you can let it go, you can watch it. We're not aware of, it's out the window. It's controlling you. Instincts is a perfect example of that. How could you control your instincts if you don't even know what they are? People think we are supposed to wait rather than watch. I've heard that before. Sounds weird, but as in wait for stuff to happen. That waiting is this anticipation of something's going to happen, like you're watching a scary movie. Watching is totally different. It's looking and paying close attention observing, spiritual observation, also known as spiritual awareness. So in Taoism, in Buddhism, and other metaphysical traditions, there's talk about being the watcher of our thoughts, the awareness of our thoughts, the watcher of our thoughts. And here's the way it is. So for years, our mind, we'll call it the ego, was the watcher of our thoughts. And the ego was built on instincts, right? Or driven by instincts. Meaning when we used to look at our emotions, we were the watcher. When we have the spiritual awakening, the watcher becomes consciousness up here rather than up here. Meaning now we look at our emotions through the eyes of conscious. Conscious is the watcher. You see through the eyes of it rather than the ego. With step 10, inventory 49 on a daily basis, consciousness grows more and more every day, even we don't know what's happening, because it goes beyond just watching our thoughts and emotions. We are watching our surroundings, right? We are also, what we see around us, and we're also watching our body, our physical sensations, breathing, health, more. Consciousness keeps expanding in all directions. That is what I mean when I say our thinking becomes one with God's thinking, fourth dimension of existence. When something negative happens, I'm going to write it down like I did in step 4. When I watch it, I see it, I write it down. Now look what it says next. When these crop up, not if they crop up, when they crop up, which means they're going to happen. Crop up means appear suddenly, right? When these crop up, we ask, that means pray. So I'm bringing a little step 11 into this. We pray at once. When these crop up, we ask God at once to remove them. It sounds like 6 and 7, but again, when there's praying now, step 11 goes into this, right? We discuss them with someone immediately. That sounds like step 5. Because the only reason I write it down is to discuss it with another. I see so many people I've sponsored over the years and friends of mine, they just write it down in inventory and they don't think that's all they need to do. It's 4 through 9. You might need to make an amends. You might need to sit for a while and let this stuff go. You're just writing it down. I mean, you write down inventory in the store does not remove it off the shelf. And, think about this. The main reason I write down is so to discuss it with another. Immediately means to do at once, no waiting. And look what it says next, and make amends quickly if we have harmed anyone. Sounds like 9. Quickly means to do something on a timely manner with little or no delay, properly. Clean up your side of the street is absolutely necessary in order to maintain spiritual progress. Clean up your side of the street is a condition for spiritual progress, always. So quickly and immediately are big spiritual words. It tells me this, it gives me a timeline for this stuff. There's one more part. Then we resolutely turn our thoughts over to someone we could help. Now it starts to pull step 12 into it, but is it just 12? We turn our thoughts over to someone. That can be anyone we can help. Anyone. We're always looking to the eyes of selflessness. I see someone that needs my help crossing the street, neighbor. But resolutely, that's a deep word. It's to do something. It means to do something in a strong, determined way. I'm putting my entire energy into someone I can help until I can see it in my head and I know what it is. Make it happen. This is, not just another, like I said, it's not just another alcoholic. I mean, we're in the world of the spirit, right? Maybe those people we can help is to bring them into it and to the same way but love and tolerance of others is our code. Love and tolerance of others means to love a person even if you disagree with them. That's called agape or unconditional love. It's not based on someone's worthiness to be loved. Love and tolerance of others is our code. Code means standard form of behavior. That's what it means. Code. Page 85. you see on page 85, it states it's easy to let up on a spiritual program of action and rest on our laurels. This is some important stuff here, some deep important stuff, right? The origins of that phrase, rest on laurels, comes from the ancient Greece, and it was original Greek games, now called the Olympics, but they did it on a weekly basis, and the victor was crowned with the laurel wreath. And what the wreath symbolized was the winner could not rest if he wanted to remain champion. He must work even harder to continue to be champion, continue hard, continue. To rest on our laurels means to be satisfied with the degree of some kind of victory. You know, some kind of victory. Why did he write this? And AA's original, let's say the Flying Blind period is the first 4 years of Alcoholics Anonymous. Flying Blind period. They only had 6 steps, and they were different everywhere. Same things. It was powerlessness, inventory, confession, amends, prayer, meditation, carrying the message. When Bill expanded 6 to 12, he wrote on a yellow sheet of paper, right? Each step he would turn into those committees, you know, the radicals and the atheists, agnostics, and the liberals, and those are the Christian folks. And he would, you know, turn them to the committee, and they would argue in the office over each step. You know, they would argue over it, which steps needed to change, and virtually each one stayed similar, but only 2 survived from the scratch piece of paper he wrote down on a yellow piece of paper to the manuscript of the big book. Anyone have any idea what steps? 4 and 10 are the exact same way he wrote them down that night when he had the migraine and prayed to God. And he wrote down all 12 steps in less than 5 minutes. You know, he refused to budge on those steps because he was a huge advocate of inventory, and he fought tooth and nail to keep step 4 as it was. Same thing with 10. He would not budge. And the community members did not understand why they should be reminded to do inventory. And Bill told them. He was a huge advocate of this 10 step because he watched people do the 6 steps, have an awakening, think their spiritual awakening will be everlasting. Anyone ever suffer from that? Some people have. We've seen it happen before. And they think, and they would drink again. He wanted it in writing. He wanted the loophole, no loopholes. This is the way of life. He wanted people to know they could and needed to continue to grow if they simply continue to do 4 through 9 as a way of life. And most important, the awakening would never leave or fade. I'm going to put up the 10-step packet. I'm just going to give a quick. So we'll look at this too next week because it's 11 steps up in here too. And it's just to simplify it. It's not, but it's kind of like the 4-step packet we have. I'll put this up in the WhatsApp group. But it's a 10-11 spiritual progress workbook, just to make it a little easier. And it has what we just read on step 10 and 84. It has the instincts in here again. It has essential words for step 4. But then we have the 10-step sheet. And the way we do it is you put the date on there. Let's say I put it's February 2nd, and I put an R for resentment. I write kicking down there because she fell asleep in my group and it affect my personal relations. Yeah, my self-esteem is high. Why? What? You know, pride's affected. Emotional security is affected. And my ambitions, my social insecurity. Now I'm judging her. Is it selfish? Yes. Is there fear? Yes. Did I discuss it with another, my sponsor? Yeah. Yes. Ask God to remove it, make amends, who knows? I'll give you another example. Let's just say I get a resentment, I harm Jason. So I put down a date, I put harm down. Actually, I put harm down. So I write down, I lied to him about the money that he needed, that he borrowed from me. I told him I didn't have it. Does that affect my personal relations with him? Yeah, from both sides. Self-esteem, probably low. I probably feel pretty low because I lied. Pride, Affects my pride. I don't want others to know about it. Emotional security, selfish, dishonest, self-seeking, pride. I think I got straight A's. Discuss it with someone, I just did, and I'm going to ask God to remove it and go make amends. I put the dates, I checked those off, maybe put the dates on there. But the one thing I have to change on here was make amends. Did I make amends quickly? Yes or no? Because we always want to do it. Most time we do that well. Fears, we put an F down, put a date down, F for fear. Let's say I have a fear of, I'll give you a real one I just wrote down. This plumbing issue that I had in my house is not going to be covered by insurance. I wouldn't say it affected my personal relationship with anyone, but I got really bad low self-esteem. My pride was affected. Emotional security was way out there. I would say my security ambitions were affected because I'm thinking, I'm already preparing, what am I going to do? I would say it was selfish and frightened, and, did all the other stuff with it. That's not hard. That's not hard at all. The first time, you gotta remember, the first time we did 4 through 9, it's done with the motivation and desperation to overcome drinking and using, to get out of the darkness. Step 10, our mindset says we're awakened now. The first time we were on training wheels, spiritual kindergarten, now the training wheels are off in step 10. We need to learn how to ride on our own. We need, ride or die, so to speak. We need to learn to live in, life and face our resentments, face our fears, face our harms when they pop up, not a week later. I like to say it's done. I used to, I like, here's a good way to put it. When I do 4 times the first time, it kicks the door open to God. Step 10 keeps the door open to God. That's as simple as that is. Very simple. A reoccurring problem I see in today's world of AA, I guess, with those who do the steps is they do 4 through 9, have an awakening, and then only do it again after their resentments and fears pile up on them. Accumulate garbage. That's not that. Why does it say quickly and immediately there? They wait until the roof caves in to do 4 through 9. They wait until the wife's telling them she wants to leave. That's not the program. 4 through 9 is not something we dust off when things are bad. We don't put it in our drawer. By doing 4 through 9, when things come up, those little things that we've written down for a while, that when my kid hid my keys, I got a little upset about it, or little stupid things, keep us tuned in to handle the bigger stuff when they happen, without chaos, without burdens and stuff that go with it. The bonus of writing down those little things is you're growing at the same time, making your making your old amends, easing your way into prayer, meditation, and sponsoring. Is all those 3 steps, 3 steps of spiritual progress. Ain't nothing like living in those steps. Ain't nothing like it. And the more you do it, the little things, become second nature. So one thing, I heard a guy say this today, it's not really 100% what we're talking about, but he described 4 through 9 as the world being dark when it was light outside. And he went inside this tent and did his inventory, talked about with another person, and talked to God, got out and made amends, went out to make amends, and the world was bright. So he could find the people to make amends to. That's what happens. I just love that. But I scratch my head a lot when step 10 is discussed at meetings. It's like they're describing a psychological exercise rather than, this is not psychological, this is spiritual. It's a spiritual growth that step 10 is, and, where they do it because they feel bad and do it to feel good. Feel bad, feel good. Feel bad, feel good. I write it down because I feel bad. Now I feel good. That's not what that's not even a part of writing it down. It's not a feel good step, it's a spiritual step. And if you're only doing step 10 to feel better, that's just behavior modification. We're not, that's techniques of reinforcing a desired behavior in order to extinguish it. Understand the behavior, bro. We've already done that. We already understand it. We're not trying to decrease or increase a particular type of behavior. It's not this program. You know, it's his best way I could describe it's like this. My blinds are closed in my room right now, completely closed. I can't see outside of them. The light's on the other side, but I need that light. When I open the blinds, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, do I look at it and go, oh, I feel better, thank you? No, I look at the light and I remind myself, how may I serve? That's where it brings me back to. Our day is not over. We just don't start, jumping around the house, slapping ourselves in the back. I get right back and walking with God. I used to say step 10 was, I say it sometimes here quite a bit daily, but it's more, in reality, it's more like minute to minute. When things crop up, we take action. If done this way, you will not get accumulated garbage. We need to do, and we don't need to do an annual house cleaning, which, 6 months or a semi-annual 6 months or an annual, once a year. If you examine your thoughts and actions when things crop up, you resolve them, and negative thoughts and feelings will decrease. You have the strength and faith, to face life's difficulties. Think of it like this. In my office here, it gets messy, especially now since half my house is in my office because of doing remodel. If I keep my desk organized every day, I can find my keys, right? My tax papers. I was looking for it all day today. If I just kept it organized, it's always there. But what will happen if I do it every 6 months or every 6 weeks or 6 days? I won't be able to find anything. But I personally wish people crumble on this program because they wait to do inventory when the shit hits the fan. And when they're emotionally distraught and they have a breakdown, they wait to do inventory when the wheels fall off. How many people in here have backed off inventory and gone back and then jumped back to do it and hope he would save you and you use the next day? I've seen that happen before. Oh, I got to get back into doing inventory, and they say it for like 6 weeks and then they get back and do it again, and then 2 days later they're using. That's why it happened. That's not recovery of being recovered. That's always recovering. I don't want to be that. I read in step 9 promises earlier that we're going to look at the 10-step promises. These promises here, they're different from the 9-step promise because they show us what the grace of God looks like. The grace of God. I wish they read these at meetings more. A couple meetings, I do it. But remember, the 3rd step promises say, God provide what we need if we stay close to him for performance work well. These are the results of staying close to God. Step 5 says we feel we're on the broad highway, walking hand in the spirit of the universe. This is what the broad highway looks like. This is it. It says, and we have ceased fighting anything, anyone, even alcohol. Cease means to stop, to put to an end. Does that sound like a person who's free of anger? Yes, it does. Very different from when this book said earlier about the actor, who's always in collision with something or somebody, even when his moments are, is always in collision. We go from always in collision with something or somebody. How many times have you felt like all day you're in collision and you shift from cease fighting anything, cease fighting? If you're still fighting, if I'm still fighting people, if I still have enemies, am I recovered? Even if the obsession's gone, I'm not recovered. And it's probably not, but people say I'm recovered, yet they still have enemies and still fight things, even alcohol. How spiritual is it if how spiritual is it if you say you hate people? I don't know. I don't get it. People say that. I got enemies. I got people. You're not recovered. For by this time, here's the next condition for this, but for by this time, sanity will have returned. Look at this one for a second. Sanity, soundness of mind, whole. That means complete in the mind, body, and spirit, wholeness. This is where step 2 becomes reality. Step 2 is just a word. It's a saying. It's telling you, you can have this later on. This is it. Step 2 just wanted us to believe it could happen. And here's the proof. Page 44 is where step 2 starts. We're on page 84. That's 44 pages of directions and more directions and work that we did to get here. look at the directions we follow. I had a guy that's recently who never got past step 3, and he swore up and down he had step 2, and he did this, and he goes, my God, couldn't believe it. When wholeness occurs, the mind, gotta remember, it's being retrained. And that's away from insanity, away from instincts. That's why I say the steps are about unlearning. Look at this. Will seldom be interested in liquor. If tempted, recoil from as a hot flame. Recoil means to spring backwards, like from heat, like a barbecue or a stove. We react same and normally. We find this has happened automatically. This book hammered home that our mind is not normal. When it comes to booze, right? When it comes to booze, now we react sanely normally, and it happens automatically. Automatically is a big word because it's something that is done on its own. When something is, corrected without conscious thought. So he's saying, so sanely happens without thought. You don't have to try to be sane. It happens. It's not a fake it till you make it thing. People tell you that I'm going to fake it till I make it till I'm sane. Good luck. That's suicide is what the result is. We'll see there a new attitude. There's that word again, new, towards liquor. Is not given any thought or effort on our part. It just comes. It's kind of interesting because he says no thought or effort, and we just did inventory, sought God, made a bunch of amends. That's effort. It's no effort because our inventory was not about alcohol. It was about other stuff. We didn't walk into AA to deal with our resentments, harms, and fears, and sex conduct. We went to AA because we didn't want to drink anymore. But we inventory resentments, harms, fears, and sex conduct. Our instincts. And through 4 through 9, we overcome the spiritual malady. And I can connect the spirit with me. We have a new attitude with alcohol. It's a little nice bonus, miracle. That is the miracle of it. We're not fighting it. Now they're avoiding temptation. So the miracle is an extraordinary event that is unexplainable by laws of science, nature, human intelligence. Therefore considered a work of some supernatural divine. That's where people get lost. They write off miracles, but they never really seen them because they're closed-minded, because a miracle only comes from supernatural, God, whatever you want to call it. But once you see it, you believe it, right? Because miracles come from God. Miracles is simply a less common way of saying God's working in your life. But I mean, aren't we all miracles? Someone just OD'd right now and died. Another person did. Another person just drank himself to death or got killed in a car accident with alcohol. Boom, every second. We're all real alcoholics and addicts in here. Why not us? Why are we still alive? Because we're miracles. God had a plan for us. Pretty deep. It also says now that we are avoiding temptation, that's something that you want to do, temptation, even though you know it's not good and you should avoid it. I can be around those who drink and be okay now. Avoiding temptation is we can go anywhere. Look what it says next. We feel as though we've been placed in a position of neutrality, safe and protected. Something we look for in alcohol for a long time. We wanted to feel, normal, equal. And we want to feel safe. We want to feel protected. Neutrality is just a state of being neutral, non-participation in a dispute. Because of step 10, we're no longer fighting anything or anyone, right? When I'm neutral, I'm not giving in to the resentments. No longer fighting. Also, my mind is silent when the obsession is concerned. I'm neutral. Let's see why. The greatest promise in this entire book. Something we never saw coming when we walked in Alcoholics Anonymous. We have not sworn off. Instead, the problem we have fought our whole life has been removed. Wow. Does not exist for us. That reoccurring, persistent idea of drinking that does not respond to reason is gone. You don't wake up one day and realize it's gone. You look back and realize it's gone. And you go, wow. And I remember I traced it back for about 3 months. And I was just doing the work. And wow, it's not there anymore. This book confirms that if we do this work and apply the 10 step to our life, the obsession will go away. It's the 10 step is the final piece of that puzzle. but it also keeps the puzzle locked in place. On page 64, there was a promise we read earlier. When the spiritual malady is overcome, we should mentally and physically, meaning we had the ability to connect with God. The obsession is gone. That's right here. The allergy is no longer fed. Look at the next promise. We are neither cocky, nor are we afraid, we're not arrogant, nor are we in fear. That is our experience, as long as we act, as long as we keep in fit spiritual condition. Fit spiritual condition is one result, of speaking. It's a result of speaking spiritual wellness, and spiritual wellness is the seeking of the spirit within yourself to become in touch with that spirit, the dimensions of life, resulting in that new sense of purpose and directions, goals, awareness. Why do we need fit spiritual condition? Why do I need that? Page 77. Our real purpose is to fit ourselves to maximum service to God and the people about us. That's why we're in fit. That's why we need to be in fit spiritual condition. Our purpose is to spiritually fit ourselves, 439, so I can be maximum service to God and the people. That's what the 7-step prayer says that, 3rd step prayer says that. But there's some hidden stuff in this book about fit spiritual condition. Things I can do if I'm actually doing this work. Let's go to page 100. He's like, what is he going there for? This is top secret stuff. No kidding. Page 100. Assuming we're spiritually fit. So he's telling us, if you are spiritually fit, we can do all sorts of things alcoholics are not supposed to do. So it's a condition, assuming we're spiritually fit, meaning we have to be doing the work to have these conditions. People have said we must not go where liquor is served. We heard that before. We must not have it in our homes. We must shun friends who drink. We must avoid moving pictures which contain drinking scenes. We must not go into bars. No. Our friends must hide their bottles or their bags if we go into their homes. We mustn't think or be reminded of alcohol at all. Our experience shows us that is not necessary. So thank God. Anyone who's been in rehab has been warned about triggers, relapse prevention, don't go back to slippery places and don't go to your old neighborhoods, avoid places, all that crap. Don't go around drug people anymore. So I remember many, many years ago, when I was in rehab, one of my trips to rehab, I had to make a list of things to avoid because they're triggers for relapse. It started with people, family members, friends, old drinking friends, using friends, girlfriends, ex-girlfriends, bosses, current girlfriends, neighbors, and increased the list. Then I had to make a list of places that might serve as a trigger to relapse: bars, clubs, golf courses, football games, tailgating, grocery stores, schools, work. And they kept adding more to it. Certain streets, for that part of town, concerts, pool halls, lakes, backyards. I remember one guy had lawn mowing, weddings, a graduation, holidays, fishing, gambling. I was told to stay sober, you have to avoid this stuff. Basically, you're gonna go live your life in a box, and they're gonna pop open a escape door to the back of your house, and you're gonna run to a car, go to a meeting, and run back into your house. Look what it says in the book. We meet these conditions every day. An alcoholic who cannot meet these conditions still has an alcoholic mind, still has the obsession. There's something wrong with the spiritual status, not fit spiritual condition, not doing 10, 11, 12, or making amends. Here's his only chance. His only chance for sobriety would be a place like the Greenland ice cap. And even then, an Eskimo might turn up with a bottle or a bottle of scotch or a bag and ruin the day, ruin everything. Ask any woman who sent her husband to different places on the theory he would escape the alcohol problem. If you have the obsession, relapse prevention doesn't work. Go to page 42 real quick. And this was the one that got me, and it kind of goes perfect with this. It says, where's the story? This is Fred's story. They had said, that was Bill and Bob, said, though, that I did raise a defense. It would one day give way before some trivial reason for having a drink Well, it did happen and more. And this guy studied himself. He studied the allergy obsession. He thought, I'm going to prove these guys wrong. He goes, when they give away for tributes, well, that just did happen and more. From what I learned of alcoholism, did not occur to me at all. I knew from that moment I had an alcoholic mind. I saw that willpower and self-knowledge would not help me in those strange mental blank spots. You go to rehab for 60 to 90 days or 30 days. How many of you you get so many ideas, and the first time you go, you think there's no way I'm going to use it again. I know the good and the bad. And then you go, you leave the place and you use, and none of that stuff even comes to mind. You got to do the steps. Back to page 101. Look what he says now. In our belief, any scheme, strategy, any strategy of combating alcoholism which proposes to shield the sick man from temptation is what? Doomed to failure. That's the name of the book I want to write one day, Doomed to Failure. So much for triggers, right? If the alcoholic tries to shield himself from temptation, he might succeed for a while, but usually winds up in bigger explosion than ever. Anyone ever do that? Yeah. We have tried these methods, these attempts to do the impossible. That's some deep words there. These attempts to do the impossible, he's calling it, have always failed. So the triggers exist? No, they don't. If anyone has triggers, what they're saying, they still have a mental obsession. Don't call it something else. Stick to the book. If you do this process and still have triggers, you still have the obsession. You're a ticking time bomb. And newcomers need to know this stuff. They need to know what the obsession is and stick to it. Stick to it. Don't modernize it and make it social media friendly or whatever. Why do the steps if you can stay sober by just knowing where I'm not supposed to go? Filling up a self-centered mind, mentally, unmanageable mind with the idea that we have triggers makes them think that key points of the big book aren't true. Like you can never be recovered. So our rule is to not avoid places where there's drinking. If we have there's a condition, a legitimate reason for being there. That includes bars, nightclubs, dances, receptions, weddings, even plain ordinary whoopee parties. Some of us have been to whoopee parties before. To a person who has experience with an alcoholic, this may seem like tempting providence, but is it? You will note we made some important qualifications. What's our qualifications we made? Step 10, 11, 12. Therefore, ask yourself, and I still ask myself this day, each occasion, have I any good social or business reasons to go into this place, or am I expecting to steal a little vicarious pleasure from the atmosphere of such places? If you answer these questions satisfactorily, you need to have no apprehension. Go or stay away, whatever seems best. But be sure you are on solid spiritual ground before you start, and that you move, and your motive in going is thoroughly good. Do not think of what you will get out of the occasion. Think of what you can bring to it. I love that. I think that's one of my mottos. What am I going to get out of this occasion? And what can I bring to this occasion? Every time you go somewhere, you should ask yourself that question. Think of what you can bring to it. Because we have something to bring. But if you're shaky, you better go work with an alcoholic instead. So spiritual fitness, fit spiritual condition is like physical fitness. It cannot be achieved overnight or by staring in a mirror wishing to be fit. I mean, everybody wants to be strong, but not many want to lift weights. Everybody wants to lose weight, but nobody wants to change how they eat. And the reality is people want to change, but few want to make the effort. That's the truth. Everybody wants long-term recovery, but how many want to do the work? We cannot just snap our fingers and make this happen. Spiritual fitness is not gained through observation, planning, going to groups like this and reading, great books, big book, good intention. It's not achieved by spiritual, it's, activities we did last week. We must do the work. And just like I can't stay full on what I ate yesterday or last week, we cannot stay spiritually fit on what we did last week, last month, or last year. In other words, freedom has no history. The freedom I have right now is the only freedom that matters. If I don't feel like I have freedom, I go back and do the steps again to have that freedom. So maintaining spiritual fitness is the work of a lifetime. It requires dedication, being, that repetition, continuous action, continue to perfect and enlarge my spiritual way of life. And the true test of anyone who's walked the spiritual path is to always keep walking it. Basking in glories of the past spiritual victories, that's just, you fall down then. So the key to step 10 is not letting up, to always seek growth by applying 4 to 9 to improve my everyday being. And by continuing to do all the things that we've done before, become awake. When we become awake, we become more and more conscious of our inner being. And the more conscious of our inner being we become, the more spiritual we become. The more spiritual we become, the more spiritual and mature we become. Because there's more, when we continue to do anything in our lives, we get better at it. Anything you continue, you get better at it. Anything. We're laying the foundation for the rest of our lives. It's a pledge to continually monitor our life with rigorous honesty. Rigorous honesty. Right? Rigorous honesty. And also, and that requires for us to deal with our defects promptly when they crop up and not let them linger in our lives anymore. A way different, style of life than we're accustomed to. Here's the truth. Living a spiritual way of life, we're either growing spiritually or declining spiritually. If I'm not moving forward in spiritual progress, what am I doing? I'm going backwards in spirit and regress, not progress. Regress, which means to return to where I don't want to go. And many times regress is like a flickering of light, but right back there. It's virtually impossible to get out of. Anyone that's a chronic relapser that makes it back here, man, that's amazing. But I don't care what you know. If you do, I don't care what you know. If you stop doing the steps and you're an alcoholic, you will drink again. Go back to page 66. Check this out. This is very important. There's a few people in here I know have walked this road. It says, but with the alcoholic, whose hope is the maintenance and growth of a spiritual experience, that's 10, 11, 12, a spiritual experience, this business of resentment is infinitely grave. We found it's fatal. From harboring such feelings, we shut ourselves off from the sunlight of the spirit. The insanity of alcohol returns, the obsession returns when we drink again, and with us to drink is to die, right back in the cycle. You will continue to make mistakes as you interact with others. That's a fact. You will continue to make mistakes. But, Einstein said, we cannot solve a problem with the same level of consciousness that created it. We must go deeper. Step 10, what does it really do? It uncovers our inner spirit that is always present, hidden behind our ego personality. So it is the process of shredding our wrong, our unreal concepts of life, our thoughts, our belief systems, our ideas, where we move beyond the ordinary and awaken to the universal truths and become more conscious, aware of our inner being. And so where we are free of anger, free of fear, free of the things you don't like about yourself, free of what isn't working for you, free that you're not good enough. When we shift away from misdirected instincts and ego, your mind transcends from its limitations of always suffering. Always suffering goes away. That's the limitations we shred. And to look at life in the terms of it changes. We look at life to how can I serve? But it really turns into how can I grow? That becomes your daily life. How can I grow? Every day. And within that growth, your consciousness expands in every direction. And what happens? Your talents become alive. You find yourself in a new exciting world where you discover you're far greater than anything you ever dreamed of yourself. And that's when you know, with God, all things are possible. That's what step 10 is about. You realize with God, all things are possible. Because the truth, life is Life's challenges, this is the truth. They lead us to spiritual. What would we do without our resentments? What would we do without our fears? We wouldn't be where we're at. Life challenges, bring spiritual growth. So without commitment, repetition to step 10, we take responsibility for our mistakes with it. And so if you examine your thoughts, your actions, when they crop up and resolve them, negative thoughts and feelings will decrease and always bring you closer to God. And anger goes away along with the obsession. So you have to trust this practice, and you will keep growing and living every day. And most of all, enjoy permanent recovery. The greatest thing about, the steps, when I say steps now, I mean 10, 11, 12, is everything is laid out for us. Everything has been. All you have to do is follow the directions. It's all in this book. It's all in this book. You're not going to own, if you use a different book, it's like owning a Volvo and using a Porsche manual to try to fix the car. No, you have the manual right in front of you. All you do is follow it. And you start to truly know that you are a spirit with a physical body and not a physical body with a spirit. Think about that. That's what happens in 10. You are a spirit that happens to have a physical body, not a physical body with the spirit. Where you are, and what happens when you live that? You're always in utopia. You enjoy permanent recovery. That's the thing. Let's close our eyes and do a quick meditation and think about this. What does this world of the spirit look like? Everyone's observation is different. So sit here for a minute and just picture what it looks like from your experience. What does it feel like? What does it mean to you? What does it look like right now? Is it bright? Or is it a little gloomy? Is there a struggle? Do you like where your spirituality is? Do you have pain, frustration? Or do you have inner peace? Does resentment, anger, and fear, guilt control you or hold you back? What needs to be changed? Is there something you discuss with another at once? Something you need to let go of? Perhaps you need to make an amends? Think about it. You do not have to stay away and hold on to pain anymore. You are a walking miracle, and we nurture that. And the world we live in can be rough. You must always put it in God's hands. And the greatest thing about the path is everything is laid out for you. All you have to do is follow it. So remember, you are a spirit. Continue to seek, and you will discover all the love and compassion you've ever dreamed. Always let go of pain and make right with others for the pain you have caused them. So if you continue to use these principles, everything's temporary. It only exists when we let it. This is 10-step prayer. God, guide me as I continue to grow in the path of understanding and effectiveness. Help me watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. When they crop up, help me remove them immediately. Be with me when I discuss these problems with another. Help me to always make amends quickly. Grant me the strength to always do your will. Amen. Next week, we're gonna look at the how deep we go in the fourth dimension of existence with step 11.